don't look right. Expired January 1st.
The frozen aisle was supposed to be the safest corner of the grocery store, where meat kept cold, locked away, and preserved for your family's table. But what if those frosted doors are nothing more than glass shields hiding factory filth, ammonia-soaked shortcuts, and a supply chain rotting from the inside out? The CDC already estimates that nearly 1 in 6 Americans get sick from foodborne illness each year, and seniors are the ones most likely to die from it. So let's take a guess how many of those cases are tied to the convenience we blindly toss into our carts. Why are European nations banning chemical preservatives that US grocery giants like Costco, Aldi, and Walmart still quietly spray on their frozen meat? And why are hidden fillers and deceptive labels allowed to slip past regulators while ordinary families pay the price with their health? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today we're exposing 7 grocery stores where frozen meat is a gamble with your health and your future. Number 1. Walmart. You don't need a Wall Street degree to know something's gone rotten when the meat in your freezer smells like bleach before it hits the skillet. Frozen meat from Walmart, dressed up in shiny, great value packaging with smiling families on the label, was supposed to be the shortcut to saving time and money. A humble, no-fuss way to feed the people you love without burning through your check before the bill clears. But under that layer of frost lies a time bomb of chemical residue, labor abuse, and corporate deceit. Shrink-wrapped, discounted, and served to the folks least able to fight back. A 2024 Exposed by Food Justice Watch tested great value frozen meat products and found that over 41% contained traces of antibiotics banned in the European Union. These weren't mild meds like people thought. They were classified by the World Health Organization as last resort drugs, used to treat deadly infections in humans. So what happens when those miracle drugs stop working? Because we've unknowingly eaten them in our dollar store chicken nuggets. What happens when a simple flu turns fatal because our bodies have been quietly trained to resist the very medicine that was supposed to save us? But the betrayal doesn't end in the lab. It starts on the killing floor. A federal lawsuit filed in early 2025 revealed that Walmart knowingly sourced frozen beef and poultry from facilities in Arkansas and Mississippi that had failed multiple USDA inspections. These weren't clerical oversights. Inspectors documented feces on meat conveyors, boxes soaked in defrosted blood, and mold growing like moss on thawed pallets. One USDA official wrote, "This plant poses a direct threat to public health." Days later, those same boxes were shipped out, rebranded as great value, destined for American freezers. And if the rot stopped there, we could still breathe. But no. Much of that meat was processed through Cavaness Beef Packers, a company hit repeatedly for labor violations, for specific underpaid workers, freezing conditions, no breaks, and in one reported case, an ammonia gas leak in 2023 that sent multiple staff to the hospital. The factory didn't shut down. Production increased to meet Walmart's deadline, because in this system, a human life costs less than a shipping delay. But the real cruelty is, this meat isn't landing in luxury kitchens or Michelin-star restaurants. It's landing in homes with broken furnaces and expired medication bottles. It's thawed by seniors on SSI, by disabled veterans with nowhere else to shop, by caregivers scraping together meals from a freezer that hums louder than their paycheck. The people who eat this meat aren't asking for miracles. They're just trusting the label. And that trust has been fed through a grinder. Layered between every frozen patty is another insult, with sodium phosphates, nitrites, and preservatives linked to kidney disease, high blood pressure, and cancer. Those are quiet killers that don't need a headline to end a life. Worse, frozen meat isn't required to list full additives like fresh cuts. So what you're cooking isn't just meat. It's a chemical mystery with a side of corporate silence, but there's still a way out. You can reclaim control. Some have turned to ButcherBox, where flash-frozen, grass-fed, antibiotic-free meat comes at a higher cost, but without the fear. Others shop neighborhood carnicerias or Asian butcher counters, where turnover is fast and answers are real. For those with patience and a good freezer, buying USDA choice, cuts on sale at H-E-B or Sprouts, and sealing them at home gives you traceability Walmart never offered. The cold truth is, Walmart marketed to sell frozen comfort. Meanwhile, what we bought was frozen betrayal. And in a world where trust has become more expensive than any meat, The question is whether we can afford to keep looking the other way. Number 2. Kroger. It's not always the dirtiest looking store that hides the darkest secrets. Kroger wore a cleaner face as America's friendly compromise. Not as cutthroat as Walmart, not as elite as Whole Foods. It was the grocery chain that made people feel safe, clipping coupons on daily days and trusting the simple truth label. The floors looked polished, the shelves looked full, and the meat in the freezer looked pink and fresh. But that's the thing about Frost. It hides the smell until it's too late. And in Kroger's frozen meat section, what's hiding is a global scandal, a chemical disguise, and a system that's quietly draining the health of the very people who keep this country fed. That simple truth chicken breast, or the Heritage Farm pork sausage on special, they don't just come from somewhere. Shipment logs, court documents, and federal investigations have traced Kroger's frozen meat back to JBS USA, the same meat giant that pleaded guilty in 2020 to bribing foreign officials and faking product origins, coughing up over $280 million in fines. It's like buying a car from a mechanic who once sold engines filled with sand, then being shocked when the wheels fall off. Kroger, despite its polished image, has been a loyal customer. And what do you get for that loyalty? In 2022, a former USDA official testified that some JBS-coordinated plants supplying Kroger used carbon monoxide to give aging meat a fake pink glow. On the outside, it looked like a fresh cut. On the inside, it was a science fair gone wrong. According to the whistleblower, the meat was up to 20 days old before freezing, and no customer would know. That's not fresh frozen. That's rot under refrigeration. And if that meat could talk, it'd be screaming for a burial, not a barcode. Yet Kroger didn't just let this slide. They lobbied to keep you in the dark. Records show their quiet opposition to country of origin labeling laws, especially for frozen meats. Why? Because a lot of their pork comes from Brazil and Mexico, places where feed additives like ractopamine, which is banned in over 160 countries, are still used. Pigs raised on stimulants, butchered in questionable facilities, packed and shipped thousands of miles only to end up as frozen patties with a processed in the USA sticker. It's a legal loophole wide enough to drive a truck of lies through, and if you think the pain stops with the product, think again. In 2023, OSHA reports from Kroger's freezer distribution hubs in Columbus and Atlanta revealed workers collapsing from hypothermia, being denied water, and having their bathroom breaks tracked like factory cattle. As one worker put it, "We were pushing poisoned meat out the door while being treated like livestock ourselves." The cruelty wasn't limited to animals. It walked on 2 legs, wore name tags, and punched out at midnight with frozen hands. So what do you do when a label like Simple Truth becomes a polished lie? You turn away from frozen illusions and head toward people who still value food like they value life. Try Natural Grocers or Mom's Organic Market, places that may not have bright aisles or booming ads, but make up for it with sourcing transparency and zero ties to corporate meat laundering. Or take a trip down the block to a halal or kosher butcher, where religious standards often demand cleaner practices and tighter oversight than federal laws ever dared to enforce. Still short on options? Watch for community-owned indigenous co-ops or black-owned butcher shops springing up quietly across cities. They may not have the bulk deals, but they'll look you in the eye, tell you where the meat came from. You'll leave with smaller portions, sure, but you'll also leave with something Kroger can't sell. Trust. Number 3. Costco. Costco was supposed to be the American temple of trust. Where else could you fill a cart with 64 rolls of toilet paper, get your flu shot, and walk out with a 10-pound pork loin for the price of a matinee ticket? It felt safe, dependable, and oversized in a way that promised security. For retirees stretching a pension check or working families juggling bills, Costco seemed like the promised land. Free samples at every turn, cheap gas in the lot, and a frozen section that looked like angels with clipboards had stocked it. But pull back the frost and what you find isn't abundance. It's betrayal on ice, hidden behind bulk discounts and marketing gloss. Let's start with the Kirkland signature label, Costco's pride and joy. Behind its frozen beef patties and pork loins lurks Smithfield Foods, a supplier with a rap sheet longer than a Costco receipt. In 2022, Smithfield faced federal investigations in North Carolina after its hog factories dumped waste lagoons into nearby communities, mostly black and low-income neighborhoods. The EPA documented fecal matter seeping into rivers, turning water brown and foul. And yet the pigs from these operations were still slaughtered, processed, flash frozen, and shipped in neat Kirkland bags to customers who thought they were buying safety in bulk. The stench of injustice traveled farther than the smell of waste. But the iceberg cracked in 2023 when Costco's own internal quality leak showed inspectors had rejected entire shipments of frozen lamb from Australia for freezer burn and pooling blood. Those shipments should have been discarded. Instead, a regional buyer's email urged staff to re-review the condemned meat, salvage what could be rebagged, and move it through the system. Translation: slap on a new label, stack it on pallets, and count on customers not to question cloudy packaging. If rotten meat can get a second chance, what chance do the people eating it have? The cruelty doesn't end with the product. It seeps into the supply chain. Advocacy group Worth More Than Meat uncovered that parts of Costco's frozen meat line were tied to prison labor contracts in states like Nebraska and Texas. Inmates paid less than $1 an hour worked brutal 14-hour shifts deboning chicken and sealing frozen slabs without proper gloves. One former inmate recalled frostbite creeping up his fingers as he sliced through ice-cold carcasses. "The meat was worth more than we were," he said. The irony? Costco customers believed they were paying for higher standards, while the people behind the freezer doors were treated as disposable tools. These aren't random slip-ups. They are patterns of corner cutting, of condemned products sneaking back into circulation, of labor treated with less care than the packaging tape. And yet, Costco's ads still brag about members-only quality and stringent sourcing. The freezer aisle, with its industrial lighting and tidy stacks, masks a story colder than the food itself. And who pays the price? Not the shareholders cashing dividends. It's the grandparents stocking up for a month of meals, the family freezing bulk burgers to survive rising grocery bills, the disabled veteran who trusts the Kirkland name as shorthand for value. They walk in buying peace of mind, but walk out with the illusion of oversight, and possibly a freezer full of risk. So what do you do when the bulk store of trust becomes a warehouse of betrayal? You start rethinking what bulk really means. Alternatives like Azure Standard offer frozen organic meats direct from small U.S. farms, often cheaper when bought through co-op orders. Smart and Final and Restaurant Depot, though less glamorous, have reputations for clearer sourcing without the white label smokescreen. Community food hubs are another overlooked lifeline, letting neighborhoods split farm orders at bulk prices with names and faces attached to every cut. Even inside Costco, power isn't lost. Members can demand accountability, report quality issues, and refuse to buy frozen products they can't trace. Choosing smaller, fresher cuts at local markets or Sprouts and freezing them yourself may take more effort, but at least you know who you're feeding and what you're feeding them, because in Costco's race to sell America, quality at scale, something human was left behind. Meat can be frozen and repackaged. Trust cannot. Number 4. Aldi. Aldi markets itself like the clever underdog. The store that trims the fat, skips the frills, and passes every penny of savings down to you. You swipe your own groceries, bag them yourself, even pay a quarter to rent your cart, and walk out feeling like you pulled one over on the system. For seniors counting coins, single parents juggling shifts, or workers in rural towns where grocery options are thin, Aldi feels like a rare win. But that quarter you slip into the cart, it's just a down payment on a bigger gamble. Because behind Aldi's freezer doors sits a mystery meat market, where cheap labels mask dangerous suppliers, hidden chemicals, and cruelty carved into every pound. The danger hides in the brands you barely notice. Kirkwood Chicken, Cattleman's Ranch Beef, Appleton Farms Pork. These aren't farms down the road. They're private label covers. A 2023 Freedom of Information request by EatSafe uncovered that Kirkwood frozen chicken had been sourced from Tip Top Poultry, the same processor tied to multiple listeria outbreaks, including a 2019 recall of over 135 tons of contaminated meat. USDA inspection logs showed Tip Top failed health checks just weeks before shipping product that landed in Aldi freezers. Imagine buying bargain chicken for your grandkids, only to find out later it was cooked up in a plant already swimming in warning flags. Worse still is Aldi's marketing sleight. Of hand. Their never any slogan, promising no antibiotics or additives, sounds reassuring, like a grandmother's guarantee. But in 2022, an independent audit tested 14 Kirkwood frozen chicken products and found traces of monensin and selinomycin, feed additives restricted overseas for links to liver and heart damage in humans. In other words, never any turned out to mean just enough to hurt you slowly, and the horror doesn't stop at chicken. Appleton Farms pork, proudly stacked in Aldi's freezer bins, was traced to Smithfield-owned plants in Missouri and Utah, facilities exposed by Mercy for Animals in undercover footage. The videos showed crippled pigs being dragged across bloody floors, carcasses with tumors boiled and repackaged, and meat picked up off concrete before heading back to the line. 2 USDA citations followed, but Aldi's suppliers stayed the same. Because when the only thing that matters is cents per pound, blood on the floor is just part of the bargain. This silence cuts deepest because of who shops at Aldi. Older Americans living on Social Security, families swiping EBT cards, rural residents who live in food deserts where Aldi is the only option within driving distance. They aren't just buying food, they're buying trust. And Aldi betrays that trust by refusing to disclose exact sources for its frozen meat, hiding behind competitive confidentiality. Translation: you're not allowed to know where your food came from. Just take the discount and keep quiet. And the company isn't just hiding quietly, it's actively fighting to stay hidden. Aldi has aligned itself with mega chains like Walmart and Costco to lobby against stricter country of origin labeling. That means the frozen pork in your cart could come from Brazil, Mexico, or anywhere labor is cheapest and oversight weakest. By the time it hits US shelves, the paper trail is so vague you couldn't trace a contamination outbreak if your life depended on it, which quite literally it might. So what's the way forward when a store that sells itself as salvation is quietly selling shadows? The answer isn't despair, it's redirection. Some turn to US wellness meats, where frozen cuts come with full transparency, the farm, the method, the date. Others join CSA programs that deliver frozen meat shares directly from regional farmers, cutting out the silence and the slaughterhouse shame for those who can't stretch the budget. Frozen legumes and plant proteins, black beans, lentils, tofu, offer clean, traceable nutrition that Aldi actually does source domestically. Better to eat beans you can trust than pork dragged across a kill floor. And here's the simplest trick Aldi doesn't want you to remember. Buy USDA-inspected fresh cuts from stores like Winco or Food 4 Less, portion them yourself, and freeze them at home. That way the only mystery is what day you'll thaw it, not where it came from. Who packed it, or what was hiding in the blood? Because Aldi's freezer promises savings, but what it delivers is silence, and silence in the food chain has never once been safe. Number 5. Safeway. Safeway built its name on trust. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't cheap, but it felt steady. The kind of store where retirees shopped without worry, where parents grabbed frozen meat knowing dinner was covered. That comfort has cracked. Recent lawsuits, leaked audits, and terrifying lab reports expose a frozen meat supply chain soaked in shortcuts and silence. In 2023, a Sonoma County lawsuit accused Safeway of selling frozen beef tainted with listeria. Elderly shoppers landed in hospitals across Northern California. Court records revealed Safeway had been warned by Americold Logistics, its storage contractor, that certain lots were compromised. Instead of clearing shelves, managers kept them stocked. Better to risk lives than lose profit. That is not safe. That is betrayal. Insiders describe even darker practices. A former Safeway food safety auditor revealed that lamb and pork shipments were sprayed with ammonia mist to mask spoilage odors. Technically legal, but he called it Febreze for meat. The chemical covered the stench, but not the decay. Shoppers never saw the truth. They only saw a brand promising Signature Select. Independent watchdogs added more fuel in 2024. A Seattle group tested 22 frozen meat samples from Safeway across 5 states. 70% contained sodium nitrate levels above European safety limits, especially in sausages and meatballs. These preservatives are linked to higher cancer risk and complications for those already vulnerable. Retirees with high blood pressure, patients on dialysis, seniors living alone. Now ask, should frozen convenience come with a side of chemotherapy? And Safeway's variety is an illusion. Signature Select and O Organics often come from the same mega processors, JBS and Tyson, that supply Walmart. Different bag, same floor, same underpaid workers, same risk. In 2022, an Oakland customer nearly died from an allergic reaction to unlabeled soy filler in a frozen pork product. Safeway issued a tiny recall. Most boxes stayed on shelves. That's not an accident. That's indifference. So where does this leave the people who believed Safeway's freezer was safe? Looking elsewhere. Regional stores like the Fresh Market and local foods freeze locally with tighter oversight. Amish and Mennonite butchers in Pennsylvania or Ohio freeze within a day of slaughter, minimal chemicals, maximum accountability. Even Sprouts or Trader Joe's with smaller selections list clearer origins and fewer middlemen. Because in the end, Safeway's freezer aisle doesn't sell safety, it sells a gamble. And when you buy Signature Select, you may be selecting your hospital wing instead. Number 6. Target. Target sells frozen food. Like it sells everything else. Polished, pretty, and promising a lifestyle. You walk in for socks or shampoo and walk out with frozen Angus burgers wrapped in packaging that whispers, "Better than Walmart." For families wanting something affordable without the chaos of discount chains or seniors avoiding sticky floors, Target feels like a safe middle ground. But peel back the glossy freezer doors and the story is darker. Global scandals, hidden chemicals, and silence where honesty should be. The heart of the problem is Good and Gather, Target's flagship food line. Marketed as wholesome and transparent, its frozen beef and pork products were traced in a 2024 Reuters investigation to Marfrig Global Foods, a Brazilian giant tied to illegal Amazon deforestation. Every cheap burger may represent acres of rainforest burned and workers stripped of rights. Labor records further show Marfrig subsidiaries accused of child labor and unpaid overtime. Yet Target's own memos praised price stability as the reason to keep buying. So the value in your freezer may be built on exploitation overseas. Customers have already felt the consequences. In 2023, shoppers in Colorado and Illinois reported severe illness after eating Good and Gather frozen chicken strips, later linked to undisclosed fillers and flavoring agents. No nationwide recall followed. Instead, Target quietly recoded the products and slid them back onto shelves. It's a retail trick called rolling reformulation, a way to dodge public scrutiny while keeping sales flowing. Translation: you're the guinea pig, and the preservatives add insult to injury. Tests show many Target frozen meats contain propylene glycol and sodium erythorbate, chemicals banned or tightly restricted in Europe and Japan. A 2023 Toxicology Today report warned that older adults with slower metabolism and existing health issues face the highest risk from long-term consumption. But shoppers aren't warned. They just see phrases like family-friendly and responsibly sourced plastered across the label. What makes it worse is Target's refusal to answer simple questions. At a shareholder meeting in 2024, executives dodged when asked if Good and Gather meat ever came from JBS, Cargill, or Marfrig plants. The answer? We maintain multiple sourcing partnerships in accordance with industry standards. Corporate speak for "don't ask." And yet, it's ordinary families, retirees, and kids who pay the price when the freezer hides more than it reveals. So what's the way out? Step away from the branding game. Chains like Earth Fare or Fresh Time Market commit to traceable meat sourcing, avoiding rainforest destruction and shady processors. Tribal cooperatives like Tonka Fund or White Earth Land Recovery Project sell frozen buffalo and elk. Ethical, clean, and rooted in community. And if the budget's tight, buy. Fresh meat at Food City or Smart and Final. Portion it yourself and freeze it at home. That way the only label is the one you write, not one designed to keep you guessing. Because Target's bullseye isn't aiming at bargains or trust. It's aiming at your health, your ethics, and the very peace of mind that branding was supposed to buy. Number 7. Meijer. Meijer sells itself as the wholesome Midwestern alternative, a family-owned chain where shoppers believe frozen meat means safe, honest value. But recent reports reveal something colder than ice. Hidden chemicals, filthy plants, and workers pushed to the edge. In 2023, Clean Label Project testing found ethoxyquin, banned in Europe for liver damage, lurking in Meijer's True Goodness frozen meats. It wasn't on the label, it slipped in through feed and shipping. Customers thought they were buying clean, but they were swallowing poison wrapped in silence. Then came 2024, when FDA inspectors caught Stampede Meat, a major supplier, storing pork near industrial cleaners, with rust and grime coating conveyor belts. Instead of pulling shipments, frozen packages kept moving to Meijer shelves. Frozen didn't mean fresh, it meant contaminated risk disguised as safe. Workers saw the rot firsthand. In Grand Rapids, employees said they were ordered to trim spoiled meat and refreeze it for discount sale. It was slime and plastic, one recalled. Speak up and you lost your job. Shoppers thought Meijer's freezer was family friendly. Instead, it was betrayal on ice. Want truth? Buy fresh at Hy-Vee or local Mennonite co-ops, then freeze it yourself. At least then, you know what's in your freezer. The truth inside your freezer is darker than ice. Subscribe now and never let corporations decide your family's fate.
Thanks so much for sticking with us to the very end. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our daily updates. And now feel free to check out some of our latest and most popular videos showing up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.